The obsidian war chamber of the Valdrine Empire stretched across 3 kilometers of polished stone, its ceiling adorned with holographic projections of conquered worlds. Supreme Commander Elsa stood at the central podium, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the amber light of distant stars. Around her, 200 admirals from 40 species waited in anticipation, their weapons primed, their fleets ready. They wanted war with Earth. "The humans are weak," Admiral Kreth hissed, his serpentine form coiling around his command station. 3 billion inhabitants on a single world. No energy shields. No quantum drives. They still use chemical propulsion. Elsa's compound eyes scanned the assembly. For 3 cycles, the Valdrine Empire had debated this invasion. Earth sat at a strategic junction between 2 spiral arms, its resources modest but its location invaluable. Intelligence suggested the conquest would take mere rotations. "I propose we strike now," announced General Vex, her forearms gesturing at the tactical display, "before they develop beyond their current primitive state." A chorus of agreement echoed through the chamber. Elsa raised one crystalline appendage for silence. She had not summoned them to debate the invasion. She had summoned them to prevent it. "Before we proceed," Elsa's voice resonated through the translation matrix, "I have invited someone with direct experience of human worlds. General James of the Kylar Federation." A murmur rippled through the assembly. The Kylar Federation had been neutral for centuries, avoiding the Empire's conflicts. Many had forgotten they existed. The chamber doors opened and James entered. He was not what they expected. Where they anticipated a towering warrior, they saw something else entirely. A being who walked upright on 2 legs, covered in synthetic armor that seemed almost archaic. His face was exposed, showing pale skin and 2 forward-facing eyes that marked him as a predator species. But it was his expression that unsettled them. Not fear, not aggression, but something that resembled pity. "General James," Elsa acknowledged, "you requested this audience. The floor is yours." James walked to the center of the chamber, his boots clicking against the stone. He carried no weapons, no data pads, no holographic projectors. He simply stood there looking at each admiral in turn. "You want to invade Earth?" he said quietly. His voice was rough, unmodulated by translation software. "You think they're weak. You think they're primitive. You think this will be easy?" "It will be," Kreth interrupted. "We have conquered 700 worlds. What makes theirs different?" James smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Let me tell you about human worlds. Not Earth, the others." Confusion rippled through the chamber. Admiral Vex leaned forward. "Explain." 20,000 years ago, James began, humans left Earth. Not all of them. Most stayed behind. But enough left to seed the stars. We scattered across the galaxy and we forgot each other. We evolved. We adapted. We became what we needed to become to survive. He gestured to himself. The Kylar Federation descends from those ancient humans. We changed. Genetic engineering, cybernetic enhancement, environmental adaptation. We became something new. But we remembered the old stories. The stories of Terra, of Earth. Elsa felt something cold settle in her chest. "Continue. You know the Vraxian Horde?" James asked. "The ones who nearly conquered the Eastern Quadrant 40 cycles ago. They were human once, settled on a death world with gravity 3 times Earth normal, radiation that would kill most species in hours, and predators that made your nightmares seem tame. They adapted, became stronger, faster, more aggressive. When they finally achieved spaceflight, they exploded outward like a plague. We stopped them," Vex interjected. "They were defeated." "You contained them," James corrected. "After losing 200 worlds and 3 billion soldiers, against a single human colony that had forgotten it was human." The chamber fell silent. "Then there are the Pale Ones," James continued, his voice dropping. "The colony ship that landed on a world of eternal darkness. No sun, just geothermal heat and bioluminescent life. The humans there evolved to see in spectrums you can't imagine, to hear sounds that would rupture your organs, to move through absolute darkness like it was day. They became apex predators on a planet of apex predators." He paused, letting that sink in. "The Pale Ones don't have an empire. They don't need one. They're hunters. When the Selenar Confederacy tried to claim their world 50 cycles ago, 3,000 ships entered the system. 47 ships escaped. The Pale Ones hunted them through hyperspace. Through hyperspace. No one knows how, but they did. The survivors spoke of shadows that moved between dimensions, of ships torn apart by hands that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Elsa's exoskeleton had gone completely dark, a sign of deep distress among her people. The Ashbourne Collective, James continued relentlessly. Humans who colonized a world orbiting a binary star system, radiation levels that should have been lethal. They didn't die. They absorbed it, learned to metabolize stellar radiation. Now they're living solar batteries. Their ships don't need fuel. They don't need life support. They exist in the void like it's their natural habitat. What is your point? Kreth demanded, though his voice wavered. James turned to face the Serpentine Admiral directly. My point is that Earth, the world you want to invade, is the cradle, the birthplace, the world that created all of us. And here's what terrifies me. They never left. They never had to adapt to survive impossible conditions. They never needed to become something else. He let the silence stretch. They stayed on their paradise world with its perfect gravity, its protective atmosphere, its abundant resources. And despite that comfort, despite every reason to grow soft and complacent, they climbed to the top of their food chain. They mastered fire, invented agriculture, built civilizations, split the atom, and reached their moon using nothing but controlled explosions and mathematics. James's voice grew harder. Every human world you've encountered, the Vraxians, the Pale Ones, the Ashbourne, the dozens of others you don't even know about, we all came from them. We're the descendants who left, who adapted, who changed. But Earth is where the ones who stayed behind continued to evolve without any environmental pressure, except themselves. He walked closer to the assembly. You want to know what makes Earth dangerous? They fight each other, constantly. For resources, for ideology, for territory, for reasons they forget centuries later. They've nearly driven themselves extinct dozens of times. And every time they come back stronger. They weaponize everything. Splitting atoms, manipulating genes, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology. Things we banned as too dangerous, they explore with barely any hesitation. The Kylar Federation has watched Earth for 10,000 years. James continued. We've never made contact. Do you know why? Because we're afraid. We're afraid of what they'll think of us. They're distant cousins who left so long ago. We're afraid they'll surpass us. And most of all, we're afraid they'll unite. Unite? Fex asked. There are 8 billion of them now, James said. Divided into hundreds of nations. Thousands of cultures speaking thousands of languages. They can't agree on anything. They fight over invisible lines drawn on maps, over ancient books, over the distribution of resources on a planet that could easily support all of them. But there's one thing that has united humans throughout history. He paused, his predator eyes sweeping across the assembly. A common enemy. The weight of those words settled over the war chamber like a gravitational field. You invade Earth, James said softly, and you won't be fighting a primitive world with chemical rockets. You'll be activating a species that has spent its entire existence preparing for war. Against itself, yes, but war nonetheless. They'll reverse engineer your technology within years. They'll weaponize concepts you haven't imagined. And worst of all, you'll remind them what they are. And what is that? Elsa asked, though she feared the answer. James's smile was cold. Survivors? Innovators? The species that took a planet trying to kill them and made it bow instead. You'll remind them why every single human colony, no matter how far they traveled, no matter how much they changed, shares one common trait. They don't give up. Ever. They'll throw themselves at impossible problems until they find a solution or die trying. Usually both. He turned to leave, then stopped. The Kylar Federation will not participate in this invasion. We will not defend Earth either. They don't need us. But we will watch. And when humanity, because it will be humanity then, not Earthlings, when humanity comes looking for answers about their lost children, we'll explain why we never warned them about the galaxy. And why is that? Kreth asked. James looked back over his shoulder. Because if we had warned them, they would have come out here sooner. And the galaxy isn't ready for that. The doors closed behind him, leaving 200 admirals in absolute silence. Elsa looked at the holographic display of Earth, a blue marble spinning in the darkness, ignorant of how close it had come to annihilation. She thought of the Vraxians, the Pale Ones, the Ashbourne, all human, all terrifying in their own way, and all of them had left their homeworld behind. She raised her appendage. The invasion is cancelled. Earth will be designated a prohibited zone. Any ship that enters their system without authorization will be considered hostile and destroyed. No one objected. As the admirals filed out, Admiral Vex approached Elsa.